Welcome to the History of Anglo-Saxon England, Episode 16, Aethelflaed's Protege strengthens a budding nation. In 924, Edward, the King of Wessex and Mercia, died, followed only a few months later by his legitimate son, Aethelweard. Aethelstan, who was Edward's eldest son, was born the wrong side of the blanket. Edward, called the Elder, had two known wives in succession, neither of them Aethelstan's mother. As a boy, he had been regaled by his grandfather Alfred in a royal tunic and sword. However, there are various rumours as to whom his mother was, none of them from noble blood. Notably, he had been adopted by none other than Aethelflaed Lady of the Mercians, who seems to have brought him up to be at least a royal prospect and probably, as he matured, her successor in Mercia. We have no way of confirming this, but as he was the one who succeeded to the throne within 5 weeks of Aethelweard's death, he at least had backing from elsewhere in the royal court, and some of this must go back to being groomed by Aethelflaed in her Mercian court. The coronation and anointing was on September 4th, 925, and was done so as to show the public it was God's will. He was now the ring-giver, and to prove it, the bishops of Rome were the instigators. But the men who had made him king would also require a kickback, and Aethelstan wasted no time in giving them their rewards. In 927, he set about extending his kingdom. Since the reign of Alfred, the north had changed considerably, although this went largely unrecorded in the Anglo-Saxon chronicles. Backtracking a shade, in 913, Ragnald and his Danish hordes had invaded Northumbria and battled at Corbridge against Constantine, King of the Scots, with a combined army of Ealdred of Bernicia, the Vikings, winning the day. Then later Ragnald moved south and took York, which until now was in the hands of the Irish-Norse Viking dynasty Clan Eyre or Clan Eyre. It was 919 and they were well established, minting their own coins and opening diplomatic dialogue with North Wales. This must have been viewed with alarm by the Saxons. Aethelflaed, in her time, had secured the Mersey, and Edward the Elder had upgraded the old Roman stronghold in Manchester. So this had looked to safeguard the western approach to Mercia. In 920, Sihtric and a cousin of Ragnald invaded Mercia and sacked Davenport, a place in Cheshire. This may have been what prompted Edward to win Nottingham and move north. Whatever the motive, the outcome was that the Scots and Vikings were now part of northern England. Shortly after, Ragnald dies and Sihtric takes York as his own. Back to the present-day story in 928. This is where Aethelstan starts his campaign proper. First, with a marriage deal with one of his half-sisters to Sihtric, who, 18 months later, dies, leaving Olaf, a son by a previous marriage, King of Northumbria. Guthfrith, an uncle from the Irish Vikings, sails over to York to give his support to Olaf. Aethelstan soon routs both of the Vikings and has a meeting with the northern kings at Eamont Bridge, which spanned the river Ullswater in the Lake District. This is thought to be the northern border of England at this period in time. He accepts their recognition of him as supreme ruler and forbade all devil worship, which is taken to mean the Norse gods. All was quiet for a time, then trouble arose, and this was big as it gets. In Dublin, Guthfrith had died, and he had a son also called Olaf, not to be confused with his uncle previously mentioned. And Olaf had become king, and he seems to have decided he wanted revenge and to recapture York as the rightful heir to its kingdom. So he set sail in 937 with a large fleet, and this landed in the River Humber, which as one of its tributaries is the River Ouse leading into York. and the army was joined by other armies from all the kingdoms in the north, that is Strathclyde, Northumbria and Scotland. Also the Welsh had sent a contingent. Only with a combined force did the foes of Aethelstan feel they could defeat the south. It is thought the armies met somewhere near the Don Valley in Yorkshire. Aethelstan had his brother Edmund alongside, and from the start the men of Wessex and Mercia had the upper hand, their opponents soon being scattered in disarray and hunted down and killed as they fled the field of slaughter. For many decades after Brunanburh, it had the simple appellation the Great Battle. Brunanburh became legend. 5 kings had fallen and 8 earls. For the last 2 years of his reign there was relative peace. This is the famous poem of the battle, translated by John Ashton. Brunanburh, 937. Here Aethelstan, king of earls the lord, ring-giver of heroes, and his brother too, Edmund, Atheling, elder of this ancient race, struck lifelong glory with their sword edge, the foe at Brunanburh. The sons of Edward clove the shield wall, and hewed their banners with their weapon hammers. So were they taught by kindred zeal, that they at camp oft against any reiver their land should defend their hordes and homes. Pursuing fell the Scottish clans. The men of the fleet in numbers succumbed. Amidst the din of the field, the warrior doomed. Since the sun was up in the morning tide, God's sparkling candle, the sun, bright shone. Eternal Lord scud over grounds till the noble creature sat in the western main. There lay the northern warriors, under a shower of arrows shot over shields, and Scotland's boast pressed hard by the mighty seed of Myres with chosen troops. Throughout the day the West Saxon riders fierce ploughed through the loathed bands, hewed down the fugitives and scattered the rear with steel milled sharpened blades. The Mercians too the hard hand play, spared not those that with Guthred's son across the briny deep in the ship's hold sought his land for the hardy fight. 5 kings died on the battle's field, still in fair youth, slain with swords, plus 7 of Olaf, and of the ship's crew numerical unnumbered. There was dispersed also seamen and hardy Scots, the dread of northern hordes. Urged to the noisy deep by unrelenting fate, the king of the fleet with his narrow craft thin escaped with his life on the shallow flood, and so too Constantine, the valiant king, returned to the north in hasty flight. The hoary hero held not to boast among his remnant of relations and confederates, slain with sword among the mangled melee. His son fell on the field of battle lost, mangled with wounds, young at the fight. The silver-haired shield holder would boast not of some slaughtering strife, nor would Olaf smile with pride. Now only record remnants of their army could retell the day they improved their battle craft in the field of conflict of coloured crests, the clash of honed shaft, the combat of heroes, with the whining of weapons which they in their slough of slaughter scuffled with the sons of Edward. The Northmen sailed their nailed ships, some dreary remnant, on the roaring ocean. Through deep water to Dublin's verdant shores they sought, in sultry shame. Such then they, brothers both, Aethelstan king and Edmund Atheling, to West Saxon land returned, in triumph, the corpses left for carrion. The kite and kestrel, conspiracy of night-black ravens, with the post and pale raptor to ravage his prey, the greedy goshawk, and the wild animal wolf of the weald. No slaughter was more numerous made in this isle before, or people slain with the edge of sword, as the books recount of the wise historians, since hither came we from the eastern shores. The Angles, Saxons, sailed the outspread sea, and Britannia sought. Stout metal smiths subdued the Welsh, most valorous earls that gained this land. As England slowly became more settled, trade prospered, and the laws were starting to be adhered to. Aethelstan is advised by Archbishop Wulfhelm in his charter, which states that taxes will be collected altogether before the church takes its cut, followed with a reference to Jacob from the Old Testament. So it is clear that they were firmly based on the Bible tradition, though not always strictly Christian. The age at which someone can be brought to justice is 12. Thieves are the first on the list, and then beggars, who are referred to as lordless men, in other words, not tied to a specific earl. And then witchcrafts, which are more generally the worshipping of the heathen Norse gods. It seems that a common way to get one's own justice around this time, for theft that is, was to burn down the house of the person whom they suspected. This means of retribution was punishable on the same terms as theft, and interestingly, third on the list of items. It was forbidden to deny the right of justice. This is nearly 300 years before Magna Carta. There is still ordeal by innocence, but this seems mainly for repeat offenders who insist they are wrongfully accused. However, as the rest of the laws are still in the tradition of Roman law, where you could only really be found guilty if caught red-handed, then it would be felt that those who were innocent, God would protect. The writ also lists out moneyers and how many there can be, which seems like an attempt to keep the money supply under some kind of control. But on inspection looks like a recipe for inflation or disaster, or both. In Canterbury, 7 moneyers, 4 the kings, 2 the bishops, 1 the abbots. Rochester has 3, London 8, Winchester 6, Lewes, Hampton, Wareham, Exeter, Shaftesbury, all 2 each, plus Hastings and Chichester, and then the rest of the burghs. 36 are listed. So complete madness, unless there was some instruction to which we are not privy. These were only Wessex, so Mercia would have its own. York is known to have had its own moneyer, as anyone who has visited the Jorvik Centre in York will know. What may have restricted the money circulation could have been the supply of silver and the lack of knowledge of credit. Aethelstan appears to mainly hear his courts in Wessex, and these courts were now expanded from what the previous kings would hold. The records showing that not only the bishops and thanes as before were present, but also both lay and ecclesiastical patricians. Indeed, 74 people were present on Lady Day, 931, which suggests the division of rents into quarters is already established, as Lady Day, or 25th of March, is one of the quarter days still in use at the present time for rents to be paid. Also to note is that they were from all parts of the kingdom, and people, when they associate, make friends. So these councils would help to reduce local tensions. There is nothing like finding you have the same trouble as someone else to bring one closer to another in similar need of help. It is easy to see how word would circulate back in the village or burgh that such and such was also having trouble with a band of robbers, and that they were as aggrieved as you are. And this brings less resentment of neighbours or such like. England was slowly becoming one kingdom. If you like this video, please click around the thumbs up button And if you want to watch all the videos, please subscribe or look it up and ring that bell for regular updates. I would also appreciate any recommendations on Facebook, Twitter and the like. Thank you.